It was a warm summer day, and I found myself walking along the beach. As I walked along the beach, I saw many different things, and as I saw them, I wondered about them. And I was spinning and 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 spinning. And eventually, I woke up. And when I woke up, I found myself on the beach. One of the first things I noticed was that the beach was made of sand. Earlier in the summer, I went to a beach in the mountains. The beach in the mountains was much more rocky. And so as I looked at the beach by the ocean, I wondered, are ocean beaches usually more sandy than mountain beaches? If they are, or if they're not, what makes a beach rocky or sandy? I walked further on the beach and I saw some brown stringy things laying on the sand. I wasn't sure what they were, so I decided to take a closer look. And when I took that closer look, the brown things looked like plants. When I looked at the plants, I wondered, why were they brown and not green? And I looked more closely, and it looked like the plants had little bubbles. I knew that plants got energy from the sun, so I wondered, is there some way that bubbles could help a plant get energy from the sun? As I walked along the beach, I started to notice the sand. And as I noticed it, I started to wonder, why is the sand dark in some places and light in other places? What makes light sand light and dark sand dark? As I walked along the beach, one of the first things I noticed in the sand were shells. I looked at the shells, some quickly and some slowly, and as I looked at the shells, I wondered what kind of animals used to live inside. I kept walking and thought I was about to find some new kinds of shells. But when I looked a little more closely, I realized, holy cow, there was something else on the beach. This wasn't a shell. This animal was a sea snake. At least that's what I thought it was. I remember seeing some in books before I went to the beach. I noticed the sea snake was black on top, yellow on the bottom, and had a very flat tail. I had never seen a sea snake before, and I had heard that sea snakes spend most of their lives in the water. So I wondered, what was the sea snake doing on the beach? Did it go there on purpose? Was it there to lay eggs? Or did it somehow get washed upon the shore? What do you wonder about sea snakes and their time at the beach? I said goodbye to the snake and walked a little more down the beach. And then I saw another animal digging in the sand. As I watched the animal, I wondered, was the animal just digging for fun? Or could the animal see or smell things that I couldn't see or smell? How do different animals use different senses to find things they're looking for? In the wetter sand by the water, I started to dig my own hole to see what that dog might be looking for. And after a little while, I found a little crab. This crab kind of tickled when it crawled across my skin. I thought about the crab and realized that it spent a lot of its life digging and living in the sand. I realized since the sand was underground that the animal must spend most of its life in the dark. So I wondered, how could an animal know where to go, even when it's too dark for its eyes to see? How might you get around if it was too dark for you to see? Crawling on the sand, I saw even another hole.
and I wondered how it was made.
Then I saw something moving. I watched it crawl and zoom across the sand. And then I caught it. The zooming, crawling thing that came out of the hole was a ghost crab. As I looked at the crab, I wondered, does it usually spend time in the holes, or does it spend most of the time on the beach? Does it usually prefer the sand, or does it sometimes swim in the ocean? As I was wondering about the crab, I walked a little more, and then I saw some more ghost crabs. These were a little bit bigger, and they were near the ocean. As I looked at these bigger ghost crabs, I wondered, why did they have hair on their legs and little spikes on their claws? Then I saw some similar looking crabs. Same shape and same body parts, but different colors. So I started to wonder, how does the shape and color of a crab help it get different food and live in different places? Where do crabs find their food, and how do they avoid predators? On the sand next to the water, I watched some little birds. I saw they were running, and it looked like they might be looking for food. As I watched them run, I wondered how their little feet and little beaks helped them get the food they needed. Later, I saw them taking a bath, and I wondered, do they always take baths in such shallow water? After watching the little birds run, I got a little excited and decided to do some running on my own. I saw some birds running up and down the shore, right near the water. These were much bigger than the ones I saw before. I noticed that some of them had short, straight beaks. Some of them had longer, straight beaks. Some of them had longer, curved beaks, and some of them had really long, curved beaks. The birds also had really interesting feet. Most of them had 3 toes, but some of them had toes that were webbed, as if they were better for swimming than for running. As I watched the birds, I wonder if the different kinds of beaks and the different kinds of feet help the different kinds of birds find different kinds of food. With the help of my camera, I can see what the different birds are trying to eat. I noticed that the different birds had different beaks. And as I watched the birds and I watched their beaks, I wondered, if they had different kinds of beaks, did that mean they ate different kinds of food? And if they did eat different kinds of food, what kind of food would each kind of food help them eat? What did you notice about the birds, their bodies, and what they were eating? I walked away from the birds and I saw some tracks. The tracks looked like they might be made by some of the birds I had just seen. And so I looked closely at the tracks. And as I looked at the tracks, I wondered which tracks were made by which birds. And then I saw some more tracks. As I looked at these great big tracks, I wondered, were they made by a great big bird? Or were they made by something else? And why were they so long? What do you wonder about these tracks? In the wetter sand, I saw something that was not so big. So I got down on my belly to take a closer look. I wonder who made these tracks. These tracks weren't big and long like a truck, and they didn't have toes like a bird. When I dug in the ground, I found a little snail. I wondered, how could the little snails make so many tracks? And what were they doing when they were making them? Were they crawling just to move, or were they crawling and eating at the same time? There are so many tracks that I saw at the beach. Each time I looked closely and wondered what kind of animal made them and what were they doing when they made them. I walked a little more, and then I saw an animal that I had seen in pictures, but I'd never seen on the beach. At first, I thought it wasn't healthy because it didn't seem to move. But when I picked it up, I felt something tickle, and then I noticed it had little fingers. And when I put the sea star back in the sand, it started to move. And as I watched it move, I wondered, were those little bitty hairs on the edge of the sea star like legs and toes? I wonder if there are any other animals that have little hairs that help them move. I saw the shell of a sand dollar, and I really liked its pattern. And as I looked at the pattern, I wondered, what did this animal look like when it was alive? As I was wondering, I saw something move in the wet sand, and I watched it closely. While this animal didn't look like any animals I'd seen before, there was something about it that told me it might be similar to something else. And as I thought about the sand dollar and thought about the sea star, I wondered, how might animals that are so different looking move in similar ways? Hmm. Some tracks lead out of the water, and some tracks lead towards the water. I followed the trail to the water, and I saw a little baby sea turtle making some tracks. As I watched the turtle, I wondered, had it spent the evening somewhere on the beach? Where was it going? And how did it know where to go? I thought I saw some more tracks of an animal that was really big. But as I got closer, something didn't seem right. I walked around the animal, and it was very, very stinky. As I noticed it was stinky, I tried to figure out what it was. It had a great big tail and a great big head. And after a while, I realized the animal was a whale. And as I looked around and checked out the animal, I wondered, how could a great big whale wind up on the beach so far from shore? Hmm. Up ahead on the beach, I saw what looked like some more whales laying in the sand. As I looked closely, I realized that these whales were very much alive, and in fact, they weren't whales at all. These animals were sea lions. Some of them were laying in the sand, some were climbing on the rocks, and some were swimming in the ocean. With my eyes and my camera, I spent a long time watching the animals. And as I watched them, I noticed some of the smaller ones crawling with the bigger ones. I also noticed that many of the sea lions would put one flipper up in the air, and I wondered why. Was it a signal to their friends?
Or was it something else? And did I need to watch them more to figure out what it was? What do you wonder about sea lions?
It was getting closer to the time to go home, so I started to leave the beach into the grass and trees that surrounded the beach. As I was walking, I noticed an animal that I never expected to see by the beach. At first, it wasn't moving very much, but then it started to walk through the grass, and eventually it started to climb the smaller trees. As I watched the porcupine, I wondered, how did it get to the beach? Do porcupines usually visit the beach? Do porcupines usually move slow like this? Or was something happening with the porcupine that led it to move much more slowly? What do you think was happening with the porcupine? And what do you wonder about porcupines on the beach? As my day exploring the beach came to an end, I had one more thing to see and one more thing to wonder about. Why, in some beaches, does the sun set over the beach? But in other places, the sun sets over the ocean. How do you know when is the sun going to set over the beach or the ocean?
As the sun set, I thought about all the things that I saw and all the things that I was wondering about.
I saw many different things, and as I saw them, I wondered about them. What do you wonder about the beach?